Hello, listeners. Welcome. As usual, I'm here with Sidekick Doug from The Rational Capitalist and Ashley. Hey, Doug and Ashley.
Hello.
Hey.
Today, we're going to cover the Facebook hearings, London's knife ban, which I'm actually glad that they've done because I think that helps us. New Yorker lefties have finally discovered an immigrant they don't like, and we'll tell you who that is. But first, I have a couple of jokes to tell you guys. We didn't get any jokes on the voicemail, so I'm going to tell the jokes. You ready?
Good. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Let's
well,
hear
the
it.
first one is it's that old story about the woman who's doing a survey into sexual habits. She's interviewing an airline pilot, and among other things, she asks him, when did he last have sexual intercourse? Now, knowing airline pilots, when he answers 1958, she's understandably surprised, and she questions this, and the pilot says, well, it's only 21:10 now.
That's funny.
Do you get it?
No.
When I first heard
Military
this
time?
joke, it took me a minute because pilots talk in military time.
Oh, I got you.
Okay, joke number 2. How many socialists does it take to change a light bulb? Answer, we're not going to change it. We think it works. But I got both those jokes.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that's a good one. I got both those jokes from, I was watching this great, it's one of my favorite videos to watch every once in a while. John Cleese does a speech on creativity, and he tells both of those jokes on that. So,
That's so great.
yeah. Okay, for next week, if you guys want to call in a joke, our number is 707-681-5834. You can also call in a question, and we'll try to answer that. You can also post your questions on Facebook. Send me a message, or I'm on Twitter too. I guess you could send me a message there. I hardly ever go over there though, which is good because if I did, I'd have to figure out if I were quitting Twitter or not, which I don't have to figure out. Okay.
I've noticed you've tweeted a few things lately.
Well,
Didn't you tweet a couple of things?
yes. Oh, that's funny. I actually went on a Twitter rant. I've never done that before, but Twitter is good for certain things, and if you want to publicly complain about a company, that's a great place to do it because you can tag them and,
Yeah.
So I had this horrible phone bank experience with my insurance company. And I've had this illness. I've been dealing with it. I'm so fed up with the insurance company. They have designed everything to lock you out as a patient. And they don't return my doctor's phone calls. I mean, it's like I have the worst insurance, and I have I have Blue Cross. I have one of the major companies,
Is it California based?
It's it's Blue Cross. Yeah, it's Blue Shield California.
Okay.
And California just sucks ass.
Is it an individual policy or
Yes,
a group?
because
Okay.
what else do I do, right? I mean,
Yeah. Well, a lot of these places aren't even offering, like most states now don't even have individual policy providers.
that's right.
They're just stopping.
I mean,
So it's surprising that you even have one.
I know. And it's, of course, heavily subsidized by California because otherwise Blue Shield wouldn't be able to offer it. And so they're saving money wherever they can, and they are saving money by having you basically have no chance of resolving any issues with them. I mean, they've gotten really stingy, and then you have no chance of resolution.
It's like trying to call Google.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous.
I want to call Google and complain.
So I was on the phone for an hour, and literally I'm not even trying to resolve a problem. I'm just trying to get a copy of a record of a denial of a claim. That's it. And it's not even a claim. It was a pre-auth. It was a request for approval of a drug that I want to take. And in order to get the drug manufacturer to give it to me for free, which they have a whole program to do, I just have to prove to them that my insurance company said no. That's all I have to do. And I just need a fucking piece of paper. And I was on the phone for an hour with Blue Shield, and then at the end, of course, this is like the nightmare where you're on the phone for an hour. You're talking, first of all, to somebody who doesn't speak English or barely speaks English. They're talking to their supervisor. You're a half hour with this person. Then they transfer you over, and now you're dealing with...
Start over.
Yeah.
Then you got to start over. Start the whole thing over.
everything. It's like it's a typical nightmare. And then at the very end, as you're getting transferred again, you get disconnected. Right? Or somebody hangs up on you willfully, because that's just like what happens. And so I didn't have more time to call back or whatever, so I just went onto Twitter and I bitched about it in a series of like 8 tweets. And lo and behold, I get a phone call from Blue Shield. Whoa. with an English speaking American. Ooh. To help me resolve my problem.
Wow. Do you think they saw it?
Yeah. So they don't give a shit if you're a customer and you're calling their 1-800 customer service number, but oh no, you make it public on Twitter and now they give a shit. Fuck them.
Interesting.
Yeah. Wow.
Anyway.
Well, that's socialized medicine, which is what we have.
It really is. So if you're not big or important enough, or your story's not like horrible enough to get press coverage, forget about it. Right?
You know, that's every company now, though, too. You know, I've had that. Have you ever tried to call a cell phone company like Verizon or something like that?
Comcast. I mean, especially the ones that are really regulated.
I won't.
But like you said, even Google.
I don't buy anything anymore because of that. I mean, there's no way. I just desperately want to just call a number and have a human being pick up a phone. You know, I don't buy their services. There's a lot more things I would like to get from these places, and I just won't because I don't want to call them. I don't want to deal with it.
I know.
And it's amazing.
I switched my poor 76-year-old mother over to Comcast from her crappy CenturyLink Wi-Fi.
Oh, God.
And I was and then I did that, and it took me an hour and a half on the phone with them just to buy the service. And then, of course, it didn't go as planned, and so then she was on her own trying to figure it out for the next month. And
it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I had a thing with CenturyLink too, where I ordered service. I waited for them for a day when they were supposed to come, and I kept calling them like, the guy's not here yet. Oh, they're on their way. And then they just never showed up. Oh. I couldn't get a hold of anyone. They closed. Their number's down.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'm done with this company. So a week later, I'm in bed and I get a call. I'm on my way. I'm like, what? Well, I canceled this. What are you talking about? And then so I told this guy, cancel it. So then a week later, I get a call. Same Saturday morning, early. I'm on my way. I'm
my God.
Right, I've tried to cancel this twice. And then they sent me a bill.
No.
Oh, funny.
So I was like, all right, now how do I do it? So
now you're blowing the place up. Like now it's
personal.
It's time to blow it up. No wonder that girl went into YouTube and shot people. Like she just fucking had it.
Yeah, it's like that Falling Down. Is that the movie Falling Down with Michael Douglas, where he just goes on a rampage? I mean,
yeah,
I kind of get it. I mean, I hate to say it, but there's a level at which you just get so frustrated with American society or consumer society where you just want something simple. It's not that hard.
I just feel like it didn't used to be this bad. I maybe I'm wrong, but you know, when I was first an adult, I was sort of like, wow, I now have all this responsibility and this is a lot. Like I couldn't believe how it was to be living with my mom and under her care. And then suddenly I had to take care of all those types of things by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And
it wasn't that hard.
It wasn't that hard.
I mean, it was not fun, but it wasn't hard to just set up a utility. You know, you set up your heat and gas. I mean, what did we have? Because you didn't have a cell phone. All you needed was what? Your utility, your electric power, and maybe your phone. Your landline.
Life's gotten more complex, but I also think customer service has gotten a lot worse. And nowadays, it's not even like, oh my God, it used to be, oh my God, it took me an hour to set that up and I was on the phone for an hour. Now it's like, I was on the phone for 3 hours and I still don't have it set up. Yeah. And I don't know what to do next. There's nothing I can do. That's where you get to, and that's where I got to with the insurance company. It was like, I'm not going to get this piece of paper. There is nothing I can do to get this freaking piece of paper.
It's impossible.
And so I'm done. And then I went on the Twitter rant, and then so somebody called me. But yeah, jerks. I was going to tell you guys a story about my daughter. I have this. Do you know when you have kids and you have these crazy things that you as a parent have let go, or you've you've set up and you've created a situation where now your child has this habit or this thing that she insists on that is really just awful, and you really got to stop it. But every time
an example.
Every time you want to stop it, it takes so much time. Like, she's going to have a complete meltdown. So you have to sort of gear up to change this horrible habit. I have created this situation, and I don't know how I did this. I think we were in a public bathroom once, and we did this where I hold her hands so she doesn't have to touch the toilet, so she doesn't have to wash her hands. I did this, like, right? I mean, no. So now she says to me, Mom, every time she goes to the bathroom, she wants someone to hold her hand so she doesn't have to wash her hands. Every time. At home, it's me, it's her dad, it's the au pair. Someone has to hold her hands. And if you won't, she starts to have a total meltdown. And she screams and cries. She doesn't want to wash her hands. She doesn't want to wash her hands.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? I have to stop this. I've been telling her for 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, honey, we have got to stop this holding the hands while you pee thing. Like, it's just not okay.
So mine is like the opposite of that, but also revolves around peeing and pooping. My kids take their pants completely off, even when we're in a restaurant or a gas station. Like,
my kid did that
all
too.
the way down. We for sure wash our hands.
I don't know how I got myself into this mess and how she's connected like this thing now. It's almost OCD where she has to have me hold her hands when she pees.
So when did you plan on breaking this habit? Were you going to let it go?
2 weeks ago. I'm still doing it. This morning, I told the au pair. 19. I have, right? I told the au pair, we're stopping this. We're not doing this anymore. And of course, she's like trying to do that. And meanwhile, I have been the inconsistent one.
Oh my goodness.
And anyway, so it happened again this morning. I thought that was pretty funny.
Could you buy her some like fun soap and maybe she'll want to wash her hands?
Oh.
I don't know.
That's a great idea.
Maybe I'll have to give her a jelly bean. She's candy obsessed.
Yeah, you got to give her a reward or something for changing. She needs a reward. Hey, go wash your hands with the fun soap and you'll get a sticker.
Right.
If you do it.
Okay. Yeah. I like that idea.
Stickers always work for some reason.
Yeah.
Are your kids obsessed with stickers, Ashley? Like, my kids love stickers.
Yeah, and they're all over my house. Like, stuck to the wall, stuck to me. I hate stickers. But yes, they love stickers.
They work, though.
It is surprising how they get everywhere. Like, you don't even know how they get everywhere, but they're everywhere. They're stuck to everything.
My carpet. Yep.
Carpet.
The other day, Lucia's dad walks into the room, and he had stickers all over his face. She's like putting stickers all over his face. Yeah.
Oh,
the other thing I wanted to bitch about was... I have decided I'm done with duvet covers. Does anyone else have an issue with this? And I don't even know how American society has picked up this duvet cover thing.
Okay, stop. What's a duvet?
So a duvet cover is when you have that cover on your bedspread. So you have it's usually a down comforter, and then over that you have a cover, right?
Okay.
But the freaking blanket inside the thing slips and slides all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're constantly shaking the damn thing to get the thing to spread out evenly so that while you're sleeping, you're not just covered by a duvet cover and you actually have the comforter over you.
They have like little clips you can put in the duvet covers that clip the corners.
Why don't we just have a comforter?
I like a duvet.
I've been doing this for years, and I just was doing it the other day. I'm like, why am I? Oh my God! So I ordered a comforter. It's on the way, and I cannot wait. I've literally had a duvet cover for 2 decades, and I think I did it because I thought, oh, this is great. I can if it gets dirty, I just have to wash the cover. I don't have to wash the thing inside, But I still have to occasionally wash the thing inside, and it's such a pain in the ass. And then not only that,
it's like a duck died.
Like when I'm sleeping, like it's heavy and I get all twisted up in it, and it's just not really, it's not comfortable. And I figured this out because I was recently traveling to Minnesota, and I was staying at my mom's house. And normally I sleep in the guest room with the duvet cover. But this time I was there with my daughter, and so we were in a different room that has a regular comforter. And I'm like, oh my God, this is lightweight. It just kind of like when I move around underneath it, it stays the way it's supposed to be. And I slept so much better. I'm like, what have I been doing? Am I the only one?
Yes.
I like my comforter and duvet cover.
For my listeners out there, if this is you, comment. And I need to feel some solidarity here with my community. Because clearly these two yahoos. Ashley, you like your duvet cover. Doug, you've never had one.
I don't know what a comforter or a duvet cover is. I know my wife has a bunch of stuff, and I think it just like
it just works.
I think it's
maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work.
It looks really nice. It looks like a bed. She knows what all that stuff is. I just get inside it.
Wouldn't it be great to be a guy?
I know, right?
Oh, you know what
but
it is?
But it's really fancy. It's like pillows and all sorts of stuff. I've got to take it all off the bed every day.
I bet that annoys
for some
you.
reason.
It
does. I realize that I do kind of enjoy having a made bed, but I've never really made it or know what anything is.
This is the thing. Like, it's not that you guys won't do it or that, women complain, oh, the guy never takes care of this stuff. They don't care, ladies. And that is their bliss. That is...
When I was single, I don't think I ever made a bed. I mean, it's the same, obviously it's the same thing every night. You just get in the blanket and then you go to sleep. I don't realize why you need to make more out of it than that.
If it weren't for ladies, you guys wouldn't even have sheets. You would just sleep on the mattress.
That's a great point.
With a blanket.
Just put a blanket over the mattress, yeah. Well, you sleep on a blanket.
You just don't notice how dirty and disorganized you are. And ladies are all OCD about it. Like, I'm constantly irritated that I'm the only one who does this or does that or cares about this or wants things to be organized or wants to be able to walk across a room unencumbered. Like, if Mark had his way, he would put furniture right in the middle of the room.
Well,
when
we got our kids
piling
new
up
beds,
and stuff.
My wife, she's listing off all these things we need to get for the bed. Well, we got to get, the bed sheet, or, obviously sheets, but we got to get the
pillow
thing
cams.
and the thing and the comforter and the
skirt,
the thingy and the skirt, and I'm like, what? How much is that gonna all, Of course,
Doug's like, how hard do I have to work for this bullshit?
Yeah, like that's.
She's like, no, we have to have it. It's not optional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an absolute essential. And she looks at me like, how could you even question that you need all that stuff?
That's exactly how I feel about it.
Give them a sleeping bag.
So I am throwing away, like, we have this world that revolves around our duvet covers. And I just dropped some cash to get comforters. And I'm like, I've just done this. I didn't even discuss it with Mark. It's just happening.
Yeah, that's classic. That's the difference between men and women.
Yeah, totally.
You could just spend that money. Like I might get to the point of, I would really like something like that, and then as soon as I got to the point of pushing send on the submit credit card, I'd be like, no way. I'm not spending X dollars on something like that's ridiculous.
Meanwhile, I would rather have that than upgrade my iPhone. But Mark would rather upgrade his all day long he would upgrade his iPhone before he would buy something like that. He would rather go buy groceries or like fun groceries. Not, like need groceries, but go to some specialty store and buy a bunch of fun crap.
Like if I go out to dinner, I'll spend like $80 on a great meal or like on steaks or something like that.
Yeah, double that. You have a great comforter.
Right. But when it comes like
and that
$60
lasts for years.
On that, no way. Exactly.
Yeah, so
That's
you're wrong
amazing.
is what we're learning.
I am wrong.
Okay, so the other thing I wanted to move into before we get to some political news is that I do get like some emailed questions, and a lot of times a lot of the comments that I tend to get in the emails are just like, what the heck's going on with your health? Why aren't you doing videos? So I'm just going to kind of reiterate what's going on. For the last year and a half, I've been dealing with a flare-up of an autoimmune disease that I have. And I haven't been doing videos because I've been on prednisone, up and down on prednisone for like high dose, which makes my face the size of a plate. And I'm just too vain. I'm too vain to put that on a video. So that's not happening. But the good news is I finally seem to be responding to a medication. And so it looks like I'll be able to get off the prednisone soon. And that's, knock on wood. So we'll see how that goes. And if that happens, I will start videotaping the podcasts. And I'm thinking a couple months because you have to spend a month and a half getting off prednisone, because if you stop taking it, like, you can have a heart attack or, I don't know, a stroke or something like that. So you have to go slowly off this horrible medication. And that's where I'm right now. I'm slowly getting off of it. And so we'll see. I think maybe in a month or two, we'll start doing video podcasts, as well as the comedy videos that you guys are all used to getting from me. So I have scripts. I'm ready to go. I just have to get my face back. I know it sounds stupid, but I mean, this is another girl thing. I'm just too vain about it. So
it's not just a girl thing, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I don't know. Maybe
thing.
a guy would probably at this point, after a year and a half, just be like, screw it. I'm just going to do it. And men are appreciated for things, and not that like the looks are everything or something. I mean, hopefully people like my sense of humor, but that's generally what the main thing is. But if I were a pretty girl who had, tried to tell jokes and sucked at it, I would still have a YouTube following.
Correct.
Let's be real, right?
Of course.
But if you're a guy, you'd better be funny.
That's right. There's so much more pressure for guys. I feel sorry for guys.
Yeah, guys, you really do have
Poor
it
guys.
worse than you do have it worse in some ways. We have to deal with a lot of crap, though. We do. But so do guys. It's pretty even, I'd say.
No, it's way worse for us poor guys. We have to sleep on shitty sheets and crappy blankets, dirty blankets.
Only by your own choosing.
Yeah.
You're ignorant of it, though. You don't even realize.
It's a cross we bear.
Yeah. So that's what's going on with the health. I don't know what else to say about it. I don't really want to get into details because it's boring. People don't want to hear about your health, right? The only other thing I'll say.
So you get to a certain age, then that's all people talk about.
Right. I'm not there yet. Thank God.
We're getting closer, though.
I am getting closer. And it's funny, the older you get, the more friends you have who are sick or have like a health issue. And so a lot of your conversation will be like trading health updates.
Totally.
And for me, like, I've been like sick for a year and a half. So a lot of my friends are like, so how are you doing? It's like the same answer all the time. And I don't even know what to say. I just say, same. I don't even really want to get into it because it's the up and down is the same.
I regard myself, though, as a doctor because of all my WebMD research on various
You have an honorary medical degree at this point?
I totally do.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I know more than our doctors on some topics.
Yeah, but half of it's conspiracy theory medicine, right?
Well, but that doesn't make it invalid. But
That's right.
Some of it's scientific.
That's right.
But
true.
I mean, the thing is my wife worked in she was in medical, and she said that half the time the doctors were back in their offices reading WebMD. That's how they got a lot of their.
Yeah, I mean, that's
they don't know anything.
That is what you learn when you get sick, is that doctors are always guessing, always. Mm-hmm. And I mean, once you get beyond that sort of front tier, it's like a call center. Tier 1, they can deal with. Like that, they know the answer. They see it all the time. Fire. You have strep throat, whatever. Here, take this pill and you'll be fine in 5 days. That's easy. But the second you get to tier 2, they're in the back on WebMD. Right?
They're talking to their manager.
Literally, the difference is that they can read, they can understand some of the jargon. So I've been fortunate. I have some friends who are scientists. I have a friend who's a biologist. And so she knows how to read these PubMD studies.
Yeah.
And that's where I've really found a lot of good information about alternative therapies and not just alternative, but using, these studies are all like, oh, we'll take this drug that's worked for this one and we'll try it with this one. And so you want to know, well, how many people were studied and what was the outcome? And I try to read these things myself and I can't make heads or tails of it. It's like written in a different language. She takes one look at it and she tells me exactly what's going on. So it's nice having somebody like that, but you don't need a doctor. She's just a PhD in biology,
No, they're just really advanced WebMD readers. Is what
Right.
most primary physicians are WebMD experts.
I'm thinking the future is that everybody in high school needs to take a class to learn the terminology, and they can do their own research.
Yeah, totally. Well,
That's a
or
good idea.
take science classes.
Yeah, science? Oh, that's right. I went to public school.
Is there going to be math?
They never
in
taught
that?
science.
Yeah, I guess in America we don't teach science,
science.
So we just learn the jargon of WebMD. We don't actually learn science.
But that's all you need. Then you're as good as 90% of the doctors out there.
Studies are out there. Just
I'm
go
not
read them.
kidding. And not only that, but the doctors that I've encountered, like some of them are actually bad. Like they'll actually hurt you if you listen to them.
Totally.
So you have to be very careful with doctors. And
Yeah, I always made the assumption that doctor always knows, and they don't.
I thought they were really brilliant and had this like vast amount of knowledge that it would, that's the myth, is that they spend these years picking up this vast amount of knowledge, and some doctors do, and some doctors are really smart and really curious and know how to integrate it, but it's really just like any other profession. Maybe it's an 80-20 rule. 80 suck, 20% are actually good at their jobs. Anyway.
Yeah, they're drug dispensers now.
So, do you want to talk about Starbucks? I don't really have anything new to add to this Starbucks thing. A couple black guys go into Starbucks, they sit down, they don't buy anything. It's against, Starbucks has a rule. You have to buy something to sit. And I'm sure they don't enforce this consistently because they're not paying that much attention. But whatever their reasons are for sometimes enforcing it, you're a bum, you're black, you're Hispanic. No, just kidding. In this case, they decided to enforce it. The guys resisted, so they called the cops. They resisted the cops, and they got arrested. Duh.
Yeah.
So was the Starbucks barista discriminating against them in the first place? Maybe, maybe not. I'm sure it happens to white people too. So that they get kicked out of a Starbucks because they haven't bought anything. And
well, yeah, of course.
I mean, it's not.
Why is this even a story?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a huge story, and it's a non-story. And the Baltimore chief of police came out, and he's a black dude, and said, hey, my officers acted exactly right. They said, you are trespassing. You've been asked to leave. Leave. They wouldn't leave. They got arrested.
End of story.
End of story. That's what happens.
This is what we're doing in America now. This is our problem.
So now that they've been boycotted, and of course the guy who runs Starbucks, who's a huge far lefty, has apologized and oh my God, it's horrible. We need retraining or whatever. Well, now he's created a situation where every Starbucks is going to be filled with bums.
Yeah,
Mark my words.
Oh, great.
Starbucks just killed itself. That's all I have to add about that. I don't know what else to say about that. I do not believe it's racism. And it's just one of those examples of people assuming it's race just because the people happen to be black. They assume it's race. There's no evidence that it was race. So.
Right, but there's also more context too, which is like, what else did these guys look like? Because I hate the fact that people abstract this idea of no one comes to you as like a color or a pure brain. And people are wearing clothes.
Right.
They're a certain age. They look a certain way. They act a certain way.
Right.
I mean, if I see a black guy in a suit and tie, that's different than if I see like a black guy in gang clothes, right? I mean, or a
totally white guy in a suit and tie versus a white guy who looks like a bum off the street.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It has nothing to do. I mean, that's why this whole issue of color, like it's like it's as if all else is equal. All else is not equal. Like people come in all sorts of different, and you develop a sense about whether someone's dangerous or not from all sorts of other cues, like what are they wearing, what do they look like, how are they acting, what's their age, what are they doing, and and the fact is, if you don't buy something and you're just sitting there doing nothing, you have no right to be there. So legally, but even from the perspective of race, I'd want to know more information.
Right.
And why should that be on a barista, some probably 20-something who's making $10 an hour, sitting there trying to enforce some dumb rule to get someone out of there? What are they supposed to do? Take a 100-question survey to determine, are you a safe guy that we should just allow in here without buying anything, and you can violate the rules, but someone else can? I mean, it's so stupid.
Well, and
what is the standard?
And to believe that it's racism, you actually have to believe that this 20-something millennial, who's grown up in this multiculturalist society in Baltimore, of all friggin' places, which is
right.
We're not talking about the South here. And this person, male or female, is sitting there going, oh my God, I can't stand it that those black people are sitting there not buying anything. You
right.
have to imagine that they're racist. That is the least likely scenario.
Right.
I mean, I guess it's possible, but it's not likely at all. It's got to be the most unlikely.
On a scale of 1 to 10, that's probably way down the list.
Yeah.
The more likely is people are coming in here. Depending now, where was the Starbucks? Was it in a part of town where there's a lot of traffic and there's a lot of people?
Was it in a
the
bad
place is jam packed all the time.
Where they worry? Was it busy and you've got paying customers who can't get a table? Was it that the guys looked like gangbangers? I mean, we don't know.
More context, please.
Yeah, we don't know. So, and instead of defending his employee, the CEO has come out and apologized.
Immediately apologized without any context.
Yeah.
I mean, what? I'd want to know all the details and all the information.
On the face of it, a black person got kicked out of a Starbucks, therefore racism. I'm so sick of this shit.
No more needs to be understood.
Yeah. All right. So the next item on the list is Facebook. The congressional hearing was last week. Was that last week? Yeah. And I think the big discussion going on now is, at least among our circle, Doug, was it right that he was called before Congress? Does Congress have a right to talk to Zuckerberg about this at all? Not so much what he said. I mean, I don't think there were any revelations, although I do think he lied through his teeth about whether or not his platform is neutral. It's pretty obvious to me it's not neutral. And he said he basically made a couple of statements that I would say were deceptive, because I think he knows it's not neutral. He must. And he's created the situation where it's not neutral, even if he's just created it culturally within the company. One of the things, for example, that he did overtly was he changed the trending to cut out all the conservative voices from the trending news. It used to be a real trending news. If people were clicking on it, that would show up in the list. This is what's trending on Facebook. This is what the news stories that people are reading on Facebook. And because of the fake news scandal, which is so fake in itself and not real, I mean, it's not like people do share stuff that isn't real news on Facebook. And guess what happens when you do that? It's not seconds go by before somebody says, that's fake. Right? I mean, I've been embarrassed a couple of times. I've shared something that was fake and I get called out and it's embarrassing. And you have to go, oh, I didn't know that. Like, I'm a gullible idiot.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway,
there's overwhelming. I mean, we can just start, I think, as a baseline that there's overwhelming evidence that they're biased against non-progressives.
Well, the guy he hired,
I think that's an obvious comment.
It is, and the guy he hired to curate the trending news is an overtly lefty ex-CNN executive.
Right, and they use
So he's creating an environment where the right will be marginalized or banned out, and he's banned them outright from trending news pretty much, and they're shadow banning and suspending and deleting pages of conservatives. So that is happening. And he lied and said it's not. And most people will just take his word for it. So it's deceptive. And anyway.
Well, I just want to say I'm writing we talked about this a little bit the other day, Sonny. So I'm writing a post on the radcap.com about this. And I have I don't know about you. I have a very strong opinion on this. I think, and I think we should generalize not just to Facebook, but to YouTube and Google and the others and just call it big tech or whatever you want to call it. But there's a legal and a moral issue here. And I think people are missing the boat when they just argue sort of the legal issue. Like, first of all, the legal issue is pretty obvious to me, which is that these guys have a policy that many people have built business models around on the basis of they have a neutral policy with respect to politics. Their policy is supposedly to shut down someone who's violent or dangerous or pornographic or how we would all understand that as reasonable people. Instead, they're obviously not neutral. They're suppressing non-progressive content, and there's obviously, we've talked about this before, there's some lawsuits about it, but the point is that people have built business models around this, and they've changed the rules. And
not only that, they're lying about whether or not they have.
Right, because and that's part and parcel of what I'm about to get to, which is that they don't even understand. They don't think they are banning people because they see everything through their lens, their lefty lens, which is that if someone disagrees with me, they're evil and dangerous. So in their mind, they're not.
You're basically a terrorist if you are a Trump supporter.
Yeah,
or
if you
you're
really
Russian,
believe
you support
that a
a Russian
non-progressive
takeover of America if you're a Trump supporter.
Yeah, you're essentially a Nazi if you disagree with them. So under that criteria, anyone that disagrees with when they ask Zuckerberg, are you suppressing, conservatives and these other people? Oh no, I'm not, because in his mind he probably isn't. But anyways, the point is that they've bait and switched on a massive scale, and I think that they're doing this obviously on a planetary scale. And it's, as an individual, it's impossible to push back against it. So are there some serious legal questions here? Also, they engaged in effectively giving data and subscriber data, I know, to the Obama campaign. And then there was this thing about Cambridge Analytics or whatever. There's some question as to whether there's campaign finance violations and, whether they violated people's violated their policy and privacy with respect to the Messenger app, which I assumed was private, but apparently they're going through that and looking for keywords or whatever. Like, I think a reasonable person would have expected those to be totally private, which they're not. So there's a huge issue here of disclosure.
They were also mining people's text data off their Android phones.
So
text and phone call metadata.
So I think there's clearly like a broad legal question here going on with respect to how they're behaving and whether or not they're engaging in a mass fraud. But let's go, step above that to the moral issue.
Let me back up for 1 second.
Yeah.
Given that, do you think Congress should get involved in a fraud issue, or is this up to the individuals to sue and take it to the courts and that sort of thing? Does Congress have an obligation to look into a mass fraud?
Yes, I think they do. I mean, there's interstate commerce, and so this is going on across state lines. So it's very difficult for an individual or even a state court to push back on a company like that. And now they didn't drag him in there and say, we're arresting you, but they certainly had a right to hold a hearing to say, what the hell is going on here?
Let's get it on public record what you say is going on here.
It's affecting tens of millions of people, and there are issues
Hundreds
of legality, and there's issues of, I think, campaign finance and fraud and all sorts of things going on here.
Okay, so you were going to make your point beyond the legal issue.
Yeah, like going beyond the legal issue, there's a moral issue, which is these guys are wrong. They're immoral. I mean, they're suppressing non-progressive content, and they're doing it in a way that completely fuels a movement that's come out of the universities to shut down free speech and to throttle the Bill of Rights. So eventually, this movement's goal and aim, and it's been successful in Europe and Canada, it hasn't completely taken over in the US, but it's trying, which is to ban free speech. They're trying to, in a sense, normalize the idea that anyone that disagrees with progressive politics is evil and dangerous. And that's a movement that, we've discussed that on this show many times. There is an explicit movement out there to essentially categorize any non-progressive content as inherently dangerous and inherently violent. That, the shut up and listen, white privilege, whiteness. There's a million examples of this going on. The way they're shutting down conservative speakers,
Islamophobia.
Right. Anyone, and we saw this in Britain and Europe, where they're arresting
people were just arrested for speaking out against Islamic of the mass rape of girls in these small towns.
So it's just a absolute fact that there's a very serious movement in that that's inculcating a generation of students certainly into believing that free speech is not a value and that the government should regulate speech. Now here comes this company that not only has a leftist ideology, but has the means to perpetrate this kind of bait and switch, and to also normalize and conflate the idea of speech or conservative speech with violence. So if they went out there now, if Facebook went out there and these other platforms said publicly, look, we are a left-wing organization. We're only going to allow left-wing content. If you're a conservative, you're not welcome. Go away. We're going to kick you out. Fine. I'd be all about protecting their right to do that. Like legally. Morally, I'd still be completely opposed to them. But I would certainly consider that to be fair and, and honest and transparent at some level. That's not what they're doing. They're saying, no, we're neutral. We're neutral politically. We're just this really crazy, violent, pornographic stuff we're not going to allow. So then at the same time, they're policing, shadow banning, suppressing, demonetizing, shutting down conservatives. So what are they essentially saying? I mean, the message is that under the guise of a neutral policy, if you're a conservative, you're violent, you're dangerous. And so they're fueling that narrative, which is completely immoral and completely evil.
Yeah.
And they're wrong. And they need to be absolutely opposed in any way we can. Now, the criteria for, look at, I want to mention one more thing before I stop babbling. But, the HUAC testimony when Ayn Rand in the 40s testified in the late 40s about the communist infiltration of Hollywood, what was the principle there? We were essentially at war. We were in a state of a Cold War with the Soviets. There was, communism was spreading around the world. It was a movement that sought the overthrow of the American system, and there was an ideological threat and state sponsorship. There were means by which these countries posed a real threat. And so when communists were creating propaganda essentially in Hollywood, there were hearings held that Ayn Rand testified at, basically identifying some of these films as being nothing more than communist propaganda that was being supported and essentially a form of aiding and abetting, an enemy. And there was no free speech issue because these people were engaged in an effort to overthrow and undermine our system. Now, does Facebook and Google and YouTube have nukes and an army ready to take over the country? Of course not. But think about what they're doing. I mean, if their goal is to undermine the Bill of Rights, and to overthrow free speech, which would essentially be the end of this country, and or to disarm the populace by, opposing or overthrowing the Second Amendment. I mean, how is that functionally different than some other outside organization or agency that's attempting to undermine our system? So I think that what they're doing is completely immoral, it's completely evil, and I think they need to be stopped. And I think the people on our side that are apologizing for it because they're private companies are completely missing the point. So
yeah, I when I think back to like there's no USSR, but when you think back to what was going on back then, Hollywood has been taken over by the communists. I mean, like, it's done. They totally run Hollywood, and they run the universities, and they run the media, and they run the social media. So, and all of this kind of started after Trump got elected. The left just totally freaked out. And I know under Obama, he was doing things like investigating reporters, and, they were hacking into Cheryl Atkinson's computer, and they were seizing the files of James Rosen. I mean, like, there were all, and the AP.
Using the IRS, weaponizing the IRS.
Weaponizing the IRS. I mean, Obama did some pretty bad stuff that kind of laid the groundwork for some of this. But I think everybody, the whole left really expected Hillary to win. And when she didn't, now they're really on a tear to crush any right-sided voices. And since then, it's gotten just really bad. I mean, they've put a lot of companies out of business, media companies. We had on in one of our past podcasts, John Hawkins from Right Wing News to talk about that and his experience with that. He's not the only one. I mean, it's been an avalanche, actually, of
absolutely,
of
it's
media
overwhelming.
Shutting down, right-sided media shutting down because they don't get the audience anymore. And I have stopped. I used to get all my news on Facebook, like a lot of people. I've stopped getting my news on Facebook because it's not because I'm mad or I'm protesting it, because the news isn't there. And I know how to look for the news, and I know that I'm not getting the news. So I'm like, well, I got to go somewhere else to get the news because I'm not getting it. Mm-hmm. So I was getting it, and now I'm not getting it. And I don't know. I mean, it's just an interesting. If I were sitting in a society where, and I'm not trying to say like it's okay to punch a Nazi, but we have to remember who are the moral people. The Antifa that's going out saying it's okay to punch a Nazi, they're actually authoritarians. It's not so much that they say it's okay to punch a Nazi that makes them bad people. It's what they actually want. And that is, they want to silence anyone who isn't left. And by left, I mean statist. Their whole philosophy is communism, statism, authoritarianism, and shutting people up and shutting people down. We, on the other hand, our philosophy is freedom and liberty and people being free to do stuff. And so but what I was just going to say is, like, imagine a society where, now we have this group of Nazis, and we always say, we stand for their right to march and to speak because of free speech. But they're such a small marginalized group. It's very easy to say that about them. But imagine that they owned all the media, all of Hollywood, all the universities, and not just that, but the government education institutions from K through 12. Mm-hmm. Like, let's imagine for a moment that Hitler and the Nazis are actually in charge of all of that, and they control all of the messaging that's going out into the world, and the stories and the art and everything that people are seeing and hearing is all Nazi propaganda. Would you sit there and say, well, they have a right to free speech?
Of course.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting problem, and I don't know what we're going to do about it, but I don't think that we should take it. I mean, because I feel like if we just continue to take it, we're looking at our future when we look at Britain and what's going on there and the people that are arrested. And I was just watching this this really casual exchange between, I don't even know who the guy is, some activist out of Britain. And he was talking to Milo Yiannopoulos on Milo's show, and he just very casually said, Britain has fallen, and it's going to be maybe 50 years. It has 50 years left before it's completely gone. But it's fallen, and the only thing that would save it now is to throw out democracy. And I thought, whoa, like, that's really our future. And it's very hard to be an activist there because you get put in prison if you speak out, or fined or whatever, or you're the one under attack. And the police don't protect you against attack and people who want to dox you and attack you. They protect the other people. So it's a serious situation over there. And I forget where I'm going with this, but I guess it's what are we going to do? Wait until I don't want to wait until I'm going to be arrested for saying something before I do something. Let me put it that way. I don't think that's the right, like, if my life is the standard of value, and this is what Ayn Rand says, I'm not trying to be a subjectivist here, but if life is the standard of value, do I wait until things are so bad before I'm allowed to use or do whatever I can to stop these people, these horrible, evil, vicious leftists who want to take over my country and end it and turn it into a shithole? And ruin my life and my daughter's life? Like, do I wait until they're doing it before I can do something about it? I mean, they are doing it. What am I talking about? They are doing it.
That's my point. They're not going to, tomorrow you're not going to wake up and the government's overthrown the First Amendment. It doesn't happen that way. It happens slowly, and there's a movement underway to do just that. And
absolutely,
it takes time.
There is. And it's actually big. It's more successful than I could ever imagine seeing in this country.
No, because now they've educated a generation of kids in these ideas, and these social media companies are ripening the culture for this. They're essentially normalizing the idea that non-progressive thought is violent. It is dangerous. It's inherently bad. It's inherently evil. That anyone that disagrees with them is a Nazi that needs to be shut down under any circumstances.
Yeah.
And they are fueling that, and they are advocating for that position. That is tantamount to an overthrow of our entire system.
Yeah. And they want to end the Electoral College, and that is, an attempt to destroy our republic. And
they're trying to sway elections. I mean, look,
and that's
Google
what the immigration thing is all about.
Google was throttling anti-Hillary searches during the election.
Right. And Facebook is under fire primarily from the left and being threatened by politicians on the left because supposedly because they didn't censor the news, they caused Trump to be elected. I mean, that's so because the people on the right were able to see Donald Trump's posts. I mean, that's supposedly
they didn't do enough.
Yeah. So the next thing on the news is this knife ban in London, which I think it just ties right into this. We're talking about the Second Amendment and our right to have a gun and protect ourselves, not just from criminals, but from a tyrannical government. And we say stuff, people who are pro Second Amendment say stuff all the time. Oh, this is going to, what are you going to do next? Ban knives? Like, that's a big parody and a big joke.
And they did it.
And they did it in London. They banned knives. And then there's also a movement to, and what they've banned is that you can't carry a knife. And the mayor of London says you have no reason to carry a knife. And so they don't want you to carry a knife. There's also a movement to ban kitchen knives with pointy ends. So they all have to be rounded to prevent stabbings.
Well, this goes to my point that, if the government cages everybody, we'll all be safe. I mean, this is essentially where they're going, which is that, criminals don't commit crimes. The weapons themselves seem to have a kind of mind of their own that induces people to use them. It's a complete denial and inversion of reality. So you don't start with the criminal mind and the criminal himself or the conditions that create a criminal, such as an ideology that preaches that, like Islam that preaches that you should kill infidels. Let's not start with the causes of crime and the people that commit crimes are the people that are most likely to commit crimes. Let's just focus on the instruments of the crime and try and eliminate them somehow.
It's just such a weird thing. I mean, next you pick up a baseball bat and you put nails on the end of it. Or you do a bomb. I mean, like, it's just...
or you
drive a car into
a crowd.
So
ban cars.
Britain is an island, and they seized all the guns, and so people are stabbing people. Like, that's what happens. And now you can't protect yourself because you can't have a gun. And now the guy who this is on the heels.
They've always had gun control there. I mean, I think the difference now is the composition of their society.
Yeah, well, there's that too. But
hundreds of thousands of crazy people.
But even just culturally, that guy who stabbed that burglar, I don't think the burglar was an immigrant. But he stabbed the burglar, and the burglar died, and now there's this whole... The guy can't even live in his house because he's under attack there. The old man who stabbed the young burglar in his home to protect his family. Crazy. That's England, and that is where we're headed. And let's take a little dip into the lefty soul, because we're going to talk about the lefties in New York have discovered an immigrant that they don't like, finally. And the New Yorker published a piece about it. The title is Chick-fil-A's Creepy Infiltration of New York City. Yeah. The immigrant they don't like is the Southern Christian, I guess, who likes chicken. And I'm just going to read the post here. This is from the Daily Wire. Dan Piepenring wrote that New Yorkers should not accept the intrusion of a popular restaurant serving chicken because the owner happens to be a religious Christian. Quote, the air smelled fried. New York has taken to Chick-fil-A, and yet the brand's arrival here feels like an infiltration, in no small part because of its pervasive Christian traditionalism. What signs are there of this incipient theocracy? Its Atlanta corporate headquarters, not its New York store or any of its other stores, has Bible verses and a statue of Jesus, and its stores close on Sundays. That's it. So...
Gasp.
They're infiltrating New York, and
infiltrating New York.
I mean, and the New Yorkers freaked out about it. Meanwhile, that same guy, somebody raised this really good point on Facebook this morning. The same guy who's complaining about this probably supported the Ground Zero Mosque from being built.
Think of all the Muslim immigrants that are running halal carts or, Muslim restaurants. Ask them what they think about homosexuals.
Yeah, it's not religion or fanaticism even that they're opposed to. It's just the right, and it's really just the West. I mean, that is their soul. They want to take down the West. So... whatever they say, they act all superior. Like, well, I'm a scientist and an atheist, and Christian fanaticism just rubs me the wrong way. Well, but they're embracing Muslim fanatics every day, so they can't make that argument.
Yeah, our country has been majority Christian since its founding. I hardly think it's an infiltration that a white Christian business owner has decided to open a store in New York City. Yet, where are these people with respect to other religious proprietors of restaurants all throughout the city who I kind of think might have slightly more objectionable views than the Atlanta Chick-fil-A people?
Right. Well, but, just because they cut heads off of gays doesn't, it's just a different opinion.
Right. That's completely acceptable.
Right.
But if you display Jesus or quote the Bible, that's beyond the pale.
While we're on the topic of religious persecution and multiculturalism, the Anne Frank Museum doesn't want to be too Jewy, apparently. Have you heard about this story?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Barry Vingerling turned up for work on his first day at the museum in Amsterdam and was told to take off his yarmulke. The 25-year-old was told wearing the skull cap might endanger the neutrality of the foundation, which runs the museum and, quote, influence its work combating anti-Semitism. Take that Jew hat off. We're trying to beat anti-Semitism here.
We're trying to be neutral when we oppose anti-Semitism.
Right.
What the fuck
the
is
Dutchman
that?
was told the brimless cap, also known as the kippa, was banned by the Anne Frank house as employees were not allowed to wear Jewish symbols. And I think the guy, Barry, said it best when he said, by the way, Barry, this is like, that is such a like 70s American name, and somehow he's a Dutch guy. Barry. I work in the house of Anne Frank, who had to hide because of her identity. In that same house, I should hide my identity? So crazy. And
Well, you know what I recommend to the Anne Frank Museum is that all the Jewish employees are required to wear the yellow golden stars, like they did under the Nazis, just so
they can be identified.
So they can be identified, right?
Yeah.
You know, while we're opposing anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
It'll be an experience.
You gotta listen to this quote. So I just can't even believe the irony escapes. I mean, I'm going to read you a quote from the managing director, and it's going to blow your mind that she doesn't see a problem with what she's saying, and she should just be immediately fired, actually. And so should the manager who told the guy he couldn't wear it. Okay, so here's what she said. The museum did not have a policy on wearing of religious clothing. Quote, we never had an employee before who wanted to wear a yarmulke, headscarf, or cross. We first wanted to know if a religious expression would interfere with our independent position. The Anne Frank Foundation is an independent organization without religious ties. The quote continues. Miss Rice Delder said the Anne Frank Foundation was not only a museum, but also an organization that ran dozens of educational programs. Quote, those are directed at combating anti-Semitism. We did not want that, for example, a yarmulke would influence that message. End quote.
Whoa.
How does she not see that? That's a problem.
I wonder if you could kick out non-paying black people. So let's see, you can't wear...
Well, I'll tell you what's next. Muslims are going to go in droves and try to get jobs there now just to challenge this whole thing. I mean, those assholes that they like to push the boundaries of what's acceptable and where they can infiltrate and go, they're going to go, and now you're going to have headscarf wearing fuckers at the Anne Frank house. People who hate Jews
but I love
giving
the
tours at the Anne Frank house.
You know, this is a window into the leftist mindset because... it's an attempt to obviously it's an attempt to have it both ways, where you're at once neutral, right? You have no moral outlook on the world. You're just a total subjectivist. You're, overtly, I guess, somehow neutral. Yet you're opposing anti-Semitism. So how do you neutrally oppose anti-Semitism? I guess to them.
Well, apparently you don't do it in any sort of Jewy way, because that would just be
right
inappropriate.
Well, see, and to them, I think these words like anti-Semitism have no literal meaning. It's just like, those are things they read in a book that they're supposed to be against. You're supposed to be against anti-Semitism, but, you're morally a subjectivist. So somehow, it's sort of like the way they treat Islam. They're neutral. They're officially neutral with respect to culture. But... okay, well, these people, they hate Jewish people and they can beat their wives and women have no rights and so on and so forth. They're neutral on that, right? But, what kind of but yet they're against racism, supposedly, and they're against patriarchy and, male chauvinism, yet...
But
they
it's not
are
even
neutral with respect to Islam. This is their mindset. I don't understand it.
I don't know. I mean, it's not really a neutrality. It's an anti-West, because they're not neutral about Christians. They're not neutral about white people.
Right.
They're not neutral about colonialism.
Mm-hmm.
They hate everything the West has ever done and stands for.
So that's really it. It's just if you're against the West, or you're outside the West, you're okay.
Yeah.
If you have anything to...
Her name is Garance. Her last name is Royce Dielder. I don't know if that's a Jewish name, but oh my God, she needs to be fired. I just can't believe that she thinks that a yarmulke would influence an anti-Semitic message. Oh my God.
I'm officially neutral on her firing. But I think she's wrong and a bad employee. But I'm officially neutral.
But you're neutral? Okay. Well, on that note, we have nothing left. That's it for our show today. Next week, we will start off the show with an interview of AirEye's newest CEO, Tal. I'm gonna not pronounce his last name right. Tesfani. I think that's right. If you enjoy the show, consider joining my Patreon. We are completely fan-funded, and while we break even each week, if we want to make improvements or bring you more frequent episodes, and eventually we're going to do video here, we're going to need your help. You can get mugs, t-shirts, and access to our secret Facebook group and more. Go to patreon.com/House of Sunny to join up, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening to the House of Sunny podcast. Go check out Sunny on YouTube at her channel, House of Sunny. Everything Sunny does is fan-funded, and because she's likely to get kicked off and demonetized on every platform at some point, please support her over at patreon.com/House of Sunny. Become one of Sunny's elite squad and have access to behind-the-scenes footage, t-shirts, special events, and more.